My name is Dr. Yeipieng. I'm a family doctor based in Ottawa. Sick from genocide reflects the immense moral injury, emotional trauma, and grief experienced by those witnessing these ongoing atrocities in Gaza. We cannot function as healers while knowing that the destruction of lives and futures is not just ignored but actively supported by the Imperial West as our tax dollars continue to finance Israel in committing genocide of the Palestinian people. Dr. Peter Henderson Bryce was a doctor who investigated the poor conditions in the Indian residential school system in Canada. The Indigenous children, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis who were forced into these schools for the purposes of assimilation by the settler colonial state of Canada experienced unimaginable physical, sexual, emotional, and psychological abuse and trauma. Dr. Peter Henderson Bryce called out the people running the schools, the churches, and the Canadian government. He said, "We have created a situation so dangerous to health that I was often surprised that the results were not even worse than they have been shown statistically to be." In his first report, he drew attention to the appalling conditions where the death rate in these schools were as high as 69%. A few years later, his research funding on residential school deaths was terminated, his presentations would be blocked and cancelled, and he was denied positions that he was qualified for, and the Canadian government forced him out of public service into retirement. Dr. Peter Henderson Bryce's story sounds eerily familiar to many other doctors and healthcare workers in Canada who have been silenced, suppressed, suspended, or terminated for speaking out about the ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people in Gaza being committed by Israel, funded and armed by the Canadian government and the Imperial West. The Indian residential school system is now widely known and accepted and formally recognized as genocide of the Indigenous peoples on the land in which I am speaking from right now, the traditional unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe. Omar El-Akkad wrote in October 2023 that one day when it's safe, when there's no personal downside to calling a thing what it is, when it's too late to hold anyone accountable, everyone will have always been against this. Last month, I joined a call with Dr. Hussam Abu Safia, who was working as the director of Kamal Adwan Hospital. He is an exemplary physician who established a pediatric critical care unit in Gaza against all odds and circumstances with the existing 17-year Israeli blockade on the Gaza Strip. He spoke about the conditions in northern Gaza and the medical cases he and his team were seeing, including many children who required surgery, but no surgical supplies were available, nor any surgeons for that matter, because they had either been killed by Israel or abducted and are being held hostage in torture camps. He shared his witnessing of targeted and deliberate attacks on civilians and